Um, Welcome everyone for meeting 8. This is March 19th, 2025 for the Cybersecurity Advisory Council. We have a fairly full agenda today. So I wanted to start with a couple of items. And Michelle, I'm going to channel you, so help me here, our legal counsel. There has been some updates to Vermont's open meeting laws, especially as they relate to remote or virtual public or open meetings. Two items of note is that everyone is supposed to identify themselves at the beginning of a meeting, and also that if we have any votes that are not unanimous, we are then required to go back and do like a roll call so that the results can be recorded as to who was in favor, who was opposed, those types of things. Did I get those right, Michelle?
Exactly. Well done.
Thank you. So just be forewarned that if we have something that is not unanimously approved, that's what I'll do, is I'll ask for a roll call at that point. I was hoping that we have a change in attendees. I was hoping he would be on at this point, but I'm not seeing it for an introduction. But we can start with kind of doing round robin. Nate Kuchar is no longer going to be from the UVM Health Network representing the hospitals. Worked with Nate and worked with the Vermont Hospitals and Healthcare Systems Association, Health Systems Association, to have someone new appointed. And so we now have Mark Brisson, who's actually still part of the UVM Health Network. He's the head of the IT risk and something else manager, and I can't draw a blank on it. But hopefully he'll join us and we'll get a full introduction from him. But he will be replacing Nate Kuchar, representing that sector for the time being. Bounce over and to the agenda. All right, so like I said, we have a full agenda. Before we do the review of the last meeting, we'll do just a quick roundtable introductions, get them on record, and then we'll do any corrections and clarifications. I circulated a budget letter, budget request letter, support. I'd like to address that. Assessment tools, this is probably seems random, but this is not intended to be something that we resolve today. I want to start the conversation with the group and get people thinking about how do we standardize on certain things as we move forward and move from designing and identifying what we need to do to actually start to do it. Next step, statutory requirements, was I took the time to go through and I put them in slides for us. What is in statute that we are charged to do, kind of like what I think we have met statutorily, and then what the open items are. The working groups is kind of like a sub piece of that, and a reminder that in statute we have the ability to create working groups. So as we look at what our statutory, our incomplete statutory requirements are, do some of these make sense to consider establishing working groups to address? We have a couple of items that I'll speak no more on, but that would warrant an executive session. So when the time comes, I'll be looking for a motion to enter into executive session. We'll come back out of that for any open public questions and answers, and then adjournment. Does anybody have any questions on the agenda or items that they would either like to add for the open discussion period? All right. I think I'm just going to I'll work my way around based on the membership for the committee, and get you to acknowledge that you're here. I will call your name and you can, say here to just get it on record. And then we'll go to, I characterize them as invited guests. So those that are not actually council members, but are here today. So let's start with Denise Riley Hughes.
I am here.
Thank you. John Tony,
Present.
Erica Furlan,
Present.
Eric Hillmeth,
Present.
Joe Duncan, I know is not here. He reached out to me this morning. Sue Fritz.
I am here.
Has Mark Brisson joined us? No. Hold off on that. Lieutenant Colonel.
Here.
Eric Foran.
Here.
Sean Lone. Seen you anywhere? Okay, and James Lehman.
Here.
All right. And then I'm going to work down through who I have showing as guests right now. So I'm going to start with John Kelly is to my right. Sean Naylor. Michelle Anderson.
I'm on.
David Kaiser.
Here I am.
Hunter.
Here.
Hunter Thompson. Thank you. Adam Gamlin. Adam, I see you. Would you step away?
Hello.
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I think I unmuted too quick.
Okay, thank you. Who am I missing? Leah,
Present.
thank you. Samuel Barrows.
Here.
And Peter Nelson.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, did I miss anyone? Excellent. All right. Did anybody have any corrections or clarifications for the recap from our January meeting? Can you raise your hand or feel free to speak out? All right. If something comes to mind or you haven't had a chance to look at it afterwards, please reach out to me with any corrections or clarifications you may have. Next item is a budget letter request. So this is probably going to be seem a little bit out of left field for the council. So I'll give a little bit of background, right? The state of Vermont has received or has the potential to receive federal monies from the state and local cybersecurity grant program, which is a grant program that is coming through the Department of Public Safety. So where Mr. Eric Foran is in company, through the Department of Homeland Security and CISA, or is it FEMA? I can never keep track of the two that are leading it. But that money was 4 years, the potential for 4 years with 4-year period of performance for each of those years. So think of it as like 4 years rolling out. Year one, DPS grants Homeland Security Unit was able to secure a waiver. So the way the grant is set up is year one, there was a 10% state match or 10% match, 90% federal. Year two, it goes 80-20, year three, 70-30, and year four, 60-40. We have upwards of I think 4.7 million in potential monies in year 2. Available for is the allotment to Vermont. That would mean we would need somewhere around 1.2 million in match. We don't know if we can spend it all given when that period of performance ends. So we have sought to get included in this year's governor's recommended budget $600,000 for the state match, which would allow then the state of Vermont through the Department of Public Safety to be able to leverage 2.35 million in that federal grant program to work on cybersecurity for local government and municipalities. We in the Cybersecurity Advisory Council have no budget, right? So we've been able to do a survey. We've done great work in kind of like understanding the data and crafting an initial strategic plan. And now we need a means to deliver it. So what the thinking was out of at least the CIO's office is that we could maybe utilize the results in our strategic plan to inform how we could use that state and local cybersecurity grant program money to improve cyber for locally owned critical infrastructure, right? So that's like the overlap, right? Is where water, wastewater, electric utilities, maybe any phone, internet, anything like that that might be tied to the municipality or locally owned would then be eligible to receive services through this. So that's the long way to say what we were then drafted was a letter that would, in essence, take this council's and put this council's endorsement on that funding of 600,000 and submit that to the legislature, hoping that that will help influence the committees that are responsible for it to not cut it, right? To keep it in as they work through their budget development process. Does that make sense to folks? Is there any questions before we talk about first? I think we need to take a vote as to whether or not everyone is in favor of the council submitting a letter. And then once we get past that point, if the council is, then we can talk about if there are any edits to the letter. Now I will bring it up and share it on my screen when appropriate. So do we have any questions before we consider whether or not to do this endorsement? Give you folks a minute while I find that letter.
Sean, I will compliment you on a well-written letter.
Well, you're getting ahead, but thank you.
Sorry. I didn't make a motion. I just complimented you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It was a little bit of time spent trying to think about how I wanted to get it worded. It passed with minor edits. Our chief of staff, it's rarely he lets anything go by with just minor edits, so I was pleased with that upon his review. So if there's no questions about the idea of putting forth a letter of support, we won't even get into editing it yet. I would like to get a motion to submit this endorsement so that then we can consider and vote on that. So if we can get a motion in a second to, I don't want to say it, to submit a letter of endorsement to the legislature.
I will make a motion to submit the letter to the legislature. This is Erica.
And I'll second it. It's Denise.
Thank you. All those in favor of submitting a letter of support, please signify by either raising your hands or saying aye.
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 Thank you. Do we have anyone that is opposed? Or anyone that would like to abstain? All right, it seems unanimous. Everybody remembered the new rule, so if it wasn't unanimous, we're gonna have to do a roll call, so that makes that easy. Thank you. So let me now stop sharing and share the letter. That, according to Erica, it doesn't need any, it's not what I wanted. That is what I wanted. Okay. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Can everyone see this all right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, is that Eric? Is that you? Yeah, Eric, you got your hand up? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just didn't unraise.
Oh, that was your voting
Yeah,
remnant
it's
hand.
been stuck this whole time.
Look at that. Wow. So I'm hopeful everybody had it. I tried to keep it to just a single page and focus on just kind of like the high level items. Is there, I'll just open it up, right? Either raise your hand or say if there are any kind of phrasing corrections, edits that you'd like to put forth on the letter. Once we get through this, we'll then kind of vote to accept it as written.
Just quickly noticing Nate's name is still there. Did you think that's
Oh, yeah, look at, excellent.
Eagle Eyes Sue?
I'm impressed. Yeah, see, he was still on the council when I did the initial drafts. Good call. We're gonna change that to Mark. Thank you. Any other feedback? Was there any thoughts?
I agree with Erica. This was very well worded. I think there was really nothing to poke at here.
Okay. Well,
From
thank
my
you.
perspective.
I appreciate that. I will give it another second in case people want to look it over, and then we'll have to have a motion, a second, and a vote to submit to the legislature as written or as edited to reflect the change from Nate to Mark.
Just one wording comment on the
Yes, sir.
what is the second full paragraph? Resources, specifically funding, is critical. The sort of agreement there should maybe be R, although it's a little tricky since it's resources, specifically funding, but
Yes, thank you. It does sound better, doesn't it? Yes. Appreciate that, James. Any others? If not, I will entertain a motion in a second to submit the letter as written.
I'll make a motion to submit the letter as written, make the changes that were suggested in this conversation, and approve it to submit to the legislature.
I will second.
Sue, you were second, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Excellent. So now we'll put it to over on my screen where I can see those things. Can we now have a vote? So all those in favor either say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Anyone that would like to abstain? Excellent. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much, all. I will work with John Kelly here to my right to get this in a PDF version and submitted to the different respective committees probably tomorrow. So thank you very much. This is I want to say this. Between the annual report and this, I think is really good work to by the council, right, to the legislature, right? So they created this council, and to see the results, whether they like it or not, right? But I mean, to see the results of the work and having it come kind of full circle where you're weighing in on things, I think it's good. Eric, is that a voting hand or a comment question hand?
Still raised. There.
Well, at least you're training me to ask now. All right. Thank you very much. We should get back to sharing the PowerPoint. Marching right through. So one of the things that we have, well, I don't know if we've talked about it a lot, but over the course of doing the strategic plan, where we have kind of three tiers of services targeted, it feels like there needs to be a methodology, a consistent methodology used to first, like, assess organizations that want to participate to make sure that we tier them at the appropriate level of where they are. But then also that same methodology be able to be used to measure the effectiveness of the services over time, right? That we should be able to measure, there should be quantifiable improvement, say at the end of a year, of a water utility participating in the services that we're trying to put together, that we're building. So with that, I started doing some research, and I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. It felt like there was probably plenty of good assessment tools out there. I put this slide together prior to completing my research anyway. And when it was all said and done, while I think CISA's cybersecurity evaluation tool has merit, there is another tool called, I'll say CPG, Cybersecurity Performance Goals, I believe, which is, I think, a little bit more straightforward and probably more appropriate for a lot of the organizations that are going to be eligible to receive these services. But what I didn't know is, I wanted to open it up, right? So you're all here representing different sectors, right? So does and I see your hand up, Adam, so we'll get to you in a second here. Does Erica from the electric utility grid know that there's a good assessment tool out there that we should be considering? Does John Tony, from his experience, different areas, is there an assessment tool we should be considering, right? Or Eric Hillmeth from Vermont Gas, right, and the work that you've done. How, is there other tools we should be considering as we move forward? Adam.
I just want to clarify, the CISA cybersecurity evaluation tool is an application that houses numerous assessments to include the cybersecurity performance goals. So if you were interested in adopting the CPG, as we call it, you could use it through the CSET tool.
Yeah,
That's all.
well, so thank you for clarifying that. I've struggled with getting the CSET tool to work, so that I'm getting a little just bias built in on my evaluation. But I just when I looked at the CPG, that felt very streamlined and just very manageable as a starting
And
point.
the PDF that I sent is obviously a great place to start. And I think another gentleman on this call has had some success using the CSET tool in his municipality, so he may be able to speak to getting access to it. But I will let him speak up if you would like.
Okay, so we're gonna go down through. I think Erica, you've got your hand up next.
Yeah, you mentioned, there are other tools that I might be looking at versus Eric Hillmeth might be looking at. My concern is more of if we hand a user a tool, how can we make sure that it's used consistently? And similar to the survey that we put out, is an answer from one user mean the same as the same answer from another user? And we're not going to solve that here. I just want to throw that out there before we go down the road of a standardization.
I agree, and I think while the CPG could be self-assessing, I don't think we would want to allow that for just the reasons you said. Right? We've been discussing with Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Newari at Norwich University, Champlain College, right? The Vermont Rural Water Association. They have folks that already have a relationship on the ground. So I think it's identifying maybe a tool and then getting them to utilize that. And then we're only worrying about those folks being consistent in them applying it. But that's kind of part of all this discussion. And I know we won't solve it today, but I think it's one we needed to start on. But thank you. Lieutenant Colonel.
Hi there. So I may be completely in the wrong ballpark, but after the conversation this morning with GPAC, and I've been talking with Colonel Kaiser or with Dave Kaiser a little bit about about some of the plans that we've been trying to build between the Guard and the state. But one of the things that came to mind out of GPAC today at one of the conferences we were at, Wisconsin, I think, and California have a cyber 911 line, like as if you were dialing 911 for medical emergency. They have a cyber 911, and your equivalent out there, Mr. Naylor, was facilitating a program where they had volunteers that would respond based on their expertise in whatever cyber realm it is. And so essentially it was like a 911 system for computer stuff. And it allowed people to get paid through like a state response, a cyber response fund that they get reimbursed out of for their time to go and do these missions to save the infrastructure of companies and stuff. But I know we struggle a lot with military just because of our funding and available dollars. But I didn't know if you had heard of that or if I am just like out in left field as far as bringing this up now, but I at least say it.
No, you are not. And no, I have not heard of it. So it was California, and where did you think was the other one?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin was the one that presented at the seminar that I was at.
Okay.
It just was a concept from a state that's probably got similar state funding.
No, this is excellent. And it doesn't need to be through this avenue, but if you could follow up with me at some point with maybe if you have a contact from that conference for Wisconsin, like who the presenter was.
I was going to go paperwork for it, the actual presentation.
Okay, great.
I'll see what I can get for you.
Thank you very much. That is excellent information. Samuel Barrows, you're next on the list.
Hi. So as Adam mentioned, I've been using the CSAT tool to kind of track my organization's adoption of the CIS frameworks, and I think it's been pretty good for me. I'll put it in chat here, or at least a page from CIS that describes it. My only issue with it is it's maybe a little too technical for some organizations, but that's my only complaint with it.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. JT.
Thank you. So there are a couple, actually I have 2 points to talk about the assessment. Now, the first one, we recently took an assessment. I don't think it's appropriate for everyone, but the nice part about it was we could benchmark against states, cities, and towns. So it took us out of the corporate space. It actually benchmarked us across government agencies, enabled us to see where we were from a maturity model in comparison to other people in our same seats, right? With the same budget challenges, with the same government reporting and things of that nature. It also enabled us to take out some of the assessment items like presenting to a board and things like that that are just not germane to what we do here. So there are many commercial tools we could look at, across the price points to see if we want to do a commercial tool collectively. And the second thing I wanted to address is, ironically, serendipitously, however you want to view it, the CISO of Wisconsin resigned Monday night because his budget asks for the next 2 years have not been met. And he's packing up his toys and going home. So I don't know if Wisconsin's the model that, I don't know if they're going to deliver on the model that they've presented.
Well, that's something that at the very least we can keep tabs on as it develops. But
Right.
That's good to know. Yeah. Lieutenant Colonel, your hand is still up. Did you have more to offer, or was that just a remnant hand?
Sorry, remnant hand.
No problem. I just don't want to miss anyone. I wanted to introduce it today. Unless there's other thoughts, I think what I'd like to do is, we have 2 months until our next meeting. Is the first 4 weeks, folks do their own research, and if you have suggestions, send them to me of maybe different tools, either in your sector that could be considered, or in other sectors, or you're familiar with from a past job, or you used it once and you really liked it. I can then kind of pool them all, get the information about them, distribute them prior to the next meeting so we can have a little bit more of a robust conversation about specific tools. If we get the funding that we're hoping for, that will come in July. We have places like the League of Cities and Towns and Champlain College ready to start work. It would be nice to land on something so we can hit the ground running in July, August timeframe. So that's where my thoughts are. Eric, I think you had your hand up first, and then I'll go to you, Sue.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
This time it wasn't a residual hand raise. I was just going to say, I like the CSAT approach specifically because the approach they've taken is, they've prioritized the different levels based on sort of known vulnerabilities and knowing sort of attack vectors. Whereas I think the other approaches are more open-ended, and it's difficult to prioritize when you have limited resources. I really like the CIS approach because, if you can only do a certain number of things a year, at least you know where to start, and then you're not debating what to work on with all the other folks that are telling you what to do. So I think that contrasts a little bit with at least the NIST approach I've seen and the CISA approach. So that's
Okay.
would be my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Sue.
I think the thing I was thinking, and maybe somebody said this and I was not hearing or paying attention correctly, but rather than having people self-assess from the standpoint of, are these harder for some of the less initiated folks, would we do it as an interview process, guided with somebody who was trying to make sure the answers were being understood and answered correctly and consistently? Reflecting back on, as we did our survey, we wondered whether we asked the questions correctly and whether we had good, valid, so directed interviews might bring better results.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, yes, that is what we need to strive for, is that it's a trained group, whether it's through colleges and universities or other nonprofits, right, that are out there doing this interview style face to face, because I think that's really the best way to get engagement with some of the more rural the operators and municipalities, is like literally to sit down with them across the table and kind of be like, ask them the question, but also help them get to comprehension so that they know both how to answer it and then why it's important, right? Because that's the other thing that comes out of a dialogue interview process, is the why is this question important type thing. So I think that's something we can strive for, should strive for. Any other comments today? Does it seem reasonable to just kind of like have folks send stuff to me over the course of the next month? I'll send out some reminders, and then I'll aggregate those, and we'll pull together at least a list of potential tools to use for the next meeting. See the secretary, CIO nodding yes. I hear no opposition, so we're going to operate that way. Thank you all. It's something we need to get started on.
Can I ask one question though, as you're compiling that list and as we prep for the next discussion around this?
Yeah.
Is that we can at least put a couple of considerations on what we would be looking for in either endorsing a tool or supporting a tool as a council, so that we are so that we're all aligned and not either over asking or over demanding in this space either.
Meaning like, what are we prioritizing for?
No, I just
kind of
want to
like
make
the
sure that
qualities of the tool.
not the qualities of the tool, just each tool is going to assess something under a model and under an approach. We have varying degrees of folks, so if we're going to put a tool down, I just want to make sure that we can have and show alignment to the work that the council is doing, and being able to spell that out with the list is going to be helpful.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I just feel that if we don't do this work, we're going to end up with a hodgepodge, and we will be challenged to like compare apples and oranges, right? We will have some that use one tool, some that use another, and we'll have a hard time kind of like aggregating that to give context, say, to the legislature or to the governor that we've moved the ball X because we're seeing an increase in scores from those that we work with from here to here. That feels important, right? You got to be able to measure what you're doing in order to be able
Agreed.
to determine if the investments are paying off. It's landing on the measurement tool. So, yeah. Okay. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, time-wise. Be quick on this. This is another one that I wanted to, we will dive deeper in our next meeting, but I wanted to kind of bring back up and put in front of everyone what is laid out that we're supposed to do in statute as a council, and get folks thinking about what are we going to need to do to satisfy some of the things we haven't done yet, right? And so it talks about develop and share best practices for policies and procedures to strengthen administrative, technical, and physical cybersecurity safeguards. Right? I mean, that's a lot. I don't know if we will end up doing that, but it feels like this, like landing on an assessment tool, is the beginning of a best practice, right? That we will publish and come from this council, right? That if we can land on a single tool or a couple of tools, that's the best practice for assessing. So then it maybe meets that criteria. We've started doing some of this, right? It says build relationships and conduct outreach within state government, federal government, and the private sector, ensure resilience of electronic information systems. We started that, right, by the work of the council, the folks that are here, folks we're engaging with, but feels like there is more to that than what we've done so far. We started working with like the Norwich and the Champlains and stuff, so I feel like we've at least started that one. Conduct an inventory and review of cybersecurity standards and protocols. I hope that typo is not in statute and somehow I introduced it. The critical sector infrastructures. Sounds weird. I must have somehow fucked up when I took it out of statute. Make recommendations on whether improved or additional standards and protocols are necessary, right? And this is one that, for those that have been around from the beginning, right? Sue and Eric and Erica and stuff, we talked about is there are plenty of standards out there that meet the needs for the different sectors. We don't need to create a Vermont set of standards to impose upon folks, right? So I think at some point we need to kind of like acknowledge that we've looked at all of those and that they meet our needs and there is not additional need for Vermont specific standards or protocols. So just to kind of close the loop on that one. And then this one is a little bit, all right, so I was part of getting this through the State House, so I will own some of this. But in hindsight, right, identify and advise on opportunities to whom, right? We didn't we didn't really pick up on that. I assume it's going to be to the legislature, but highly skilled workforce, raising citizen awareness, technical capabilities, training, and advice to local government and the private sector. I mean, these are big things, right? And a lot of it will be touched on as we're start to turn the strategic plan into actionable items. But there's others that we need to keep in mind is how are we going to address? Advise on strategic, operational, and budgetary impacts of cybersecurity. I say, we can check on the budgetary. We just did a letter endorsing the budget request, so we are living up to our requirements. Engage state and federal partners in assessing and managing risk. Investigate ways the state can implement a unified cybersecurity communications and response, including recommendations for establishing statewide communication protocols in the event of a cybersecurity event. That is huge. I think it's something we grow into as a council, thinking about how to tackle that. Access cyber insurance, including how to increase availability and affordability of cyber insurance for critical industries. JT, got any ideas on how we can make cyber insurance more affordable?
Just shopping around and looking for, simply it's shopping around and looking for coalitions you can join on theirs. The cyber insurance industry is trying their best to get out of the cyber insurance business. They keep raising the rates. They keep putting more controls in, and now compared to just 5 years ago, the amount of loopholes that they put into these contracts where they can get out of paying if you don't have this control or that control or you don't take this step is phenomenal. So it's really a seller's market when it comes to cyber insurance right now. The best people I've seen it have combined their cyber insurance with other risk management. If they own a fleet of cars, actually that's been the most successful, that we're gonna pay for these vehicle insurance, vehicle leases, and then you have to tack on cyber insurance as part of the deal. Usually those type of bundling works the best.
Yep. That seems to be has been successful. So, and I often think about, right, could the state of Vermont be way better off self-insured using our real property as an example, right? Pairing the real property insurance with cyber. Mr. Kaiser.
Was exactly the trail of thought I was going down. I know other states self-insure. Is there appetite for a working group to kind of assess the risks of self-insurance relative to buying insurance? And would that be something that this council could take on?
That's a good question. I think we have some things before we get there, but yeah, because we have like the League of Cities and Towns, and if I remember correctly, Denise, VLCT is doing the self-insurer for the municipalities and includes cyber liability along with their liability and other. And so I think it is, right? I think it is something that we can look at and try and figure out if the model would be appropriate. You don't have a lot of levers to pull to try and make it more affordable, right? It's like the demands are going up, the premiums are going up, the benefit is reducing. Self-insurance or, figuring out a way to, get creative. JT.
So there's another model that has come up with some of the, if you use a managed service provider. So some of the MSSPs will, if you go in all in on their managed services, their security operations, their vulnerability management, you invest a lot of money in them, they will throw in $1 to $2 million worth of cyber insurance with that contract, and that's another means of them getting business. So that's depending on how much an organization has to spend.
Interesting thought. Oh, so any other thoughts on that before we kind of, again, I wanted to get folks introduced to this and that we come back around and talk a little bit more in depth over the next few meetings. Denise.
I did not want the 4 hours, 6 hours of council and task force meetings to go to waste today. But I do think that as we start planning these conversations in the future, especially given the membership on here matches some membership across others, that we look at where we can start working with maybe some of the other areas that have adjacent interests in cyber that would be a nice extension for this council, but also a collaboration with this council.
Yeah, I think Eric is probably right. We were talking about it before, and when you look, there is this council, its mission and what it's doing. You have the planning committee that was stood up for the SLCGP, and then you have the governor's emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Is it Action Council?
Advisory Council.
Advisory Council. I knew there was an A. I just didn't remember what it was for. Right. And so there's definitely a Venn diagram overlap between the three distinct missions, but definitely overlap. And how do we make sure that we're coordinated amongst those? Even to the point where we started throwing around, does the planning committee for the SLCGP kind of collapse into this? And we have one to manage kind of both over the next couple of years, something to be considered. This was more, I just wanted to remind folks that as you're thinking about things and as we come back around to these over the course of the next couple of meetings and start planning for the additional work we're going to be doing, that we do have in statute the ability to create working groups. So in those will still be required to meet open meeting laws, but can meet at a different frequency than the overall council. It can be a subset of folks. Others can be invited in that are not council members to be part of those working groups. So something to just keep in mind. That brings us to the end of the items I had before entering executive session. As this will work is hopefully we will get a motion, a second, and a unanimous vote to enter executive session. There will be, everyone should have a separate meeting to join that for. And then once that is ended, we will come back to here, do any kind of other open discussion items and adjourn the overall meeting. So just kind of walking through the logistics of how we need to do this. So any comments or anything, or if not, I will entertain a motion for executive session.
So this is Erica. I will make a motion to join the executive session.
I second.
That was you, Denise?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. All right, for those that are on the council, all those in favor of entering into executive session, either say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone want to abstain? Excellent. All right, folks. For those that are guests, Hunter, trying to think. Samuel, you probably don't have this, so this will be kind of closed doors. Leah and Adam, did I make sure to include you on this?
Yes, I have it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So
Same
we
here.
will, good. We will stop recording now and we will jump into that other meeting. And let's start at 2:30. So we have ended executive session, returned to the primary meeting. It is March 19th at 2:55. At this point in the agenda, it's open for any guest or general public questions or comments for the open record. Not sure if Peter is on. And Hunter, I'll start with you. Did you have any specific items for the council at this point?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter.
Yes, I just had one question. If there was going to be any sort of public RFP process for consideration of solutions for any cybersecurity initiatives from this council?
So, yes, both by policy of the state of Vermont and also the requirement of the state and local cybersecurity grant program, any efforts that we will expend money on will follow the RFP process. We don't have any in the works at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
You want to introduce yourself and your company quickly, Peter? I know you,
Sure.
but I don't know if anybody else does.
Yeah. I'm Peter Nelson, Director of Cybersecurity Services for Stern Security. The company is headquartered out of Raleigh, North Carolina. But I actually live up here in Vermont, over in St. Johnsbury.
Excellent.
We focus on a lot of blue team, red team engagements. We do work with municipalities and utility services and everything like that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any other items? Raise your hand or speak up. All right, if not, if I can get a motion to adjourn in a second.
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
This
And
is
that was
Erica. I
Denise
will
Shaw.
second.
Enthusiasm. Gusto, yes. So I have Denise and second by Erica.
Yes.
Excellent. All those in favor either signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed and want to continue to keep meeting? Anyone want to abstain? Okay. Thank you all. another successful meeting, and we finished just a couple minutes early, so you get a couple minutes back. Stay tuned. I'm sure there will be things that come for me over the course of the next month as we get ready for our month. Our next meeting is May. I think if I have it written down, May 21st. So for folks to plan on, May 21, 1:30 to 3 on Wednesday is going to be our next meeting. So thank you all, and hope you all have a good, enjoyable spring.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.